welcome back to another episode of Sit and Spin with me, your host, Joe Royland. Sorry for the delay in the show last week, not having one, that is. But as I said, it was kind of beyond my control. Big part of the problem with that being was that new releases come out on Friday. I usually do my show on Friday, so it didn't really leave me a lot of time to pick up this release, ingest it, digest it, think about what I wanted to say about it, and make a show about it. So it took a few extra days to be able to do that. And kind of sticking with the subject of our last theme, we're kind of traveling back to 1991, as right now we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of the lone self-titled album for the band, Temple of the Dog. The group has its origins formed in the ashes of the band Mother Love Bone, a group I really loved and discovered first through their EP Shine, and later through their full-length album Apple. Now, way before Nirvana, if ever there was a band that was all set to be like the next big thing, especially coming out of the Seattle area, it was Mother Love Bone, and prominently that was because of lead singer Andrew Wood. If ever there was a guy who was like a rock star and just lived that life, it was Andrew Wood. Unfortunately, he lived it a little too well and ended up passing away of a heroin overdose right before Apple was set to be released. The band itself actually had a bit of good history and royalty rock from the Seattle area. Andrew Wood came from the band Malfunction. Guitarist Stone Gossard and bassist Jeff Ament had come from the band Green River. So they had a good foundation of history going into that band. Now, Andrew Wood's roommate and friend was Chris Cornell of the band Soundgarden, and after his passing, as a way of kind of working through his grief and dealing with the loss of Andrew, Cornell decided to write some songs in tribute to him. And so he had to go off and tour with Soundgarden, and while he was there, he was intermittently writing these songs. When he first got back, he came back and recorded 2 demos for songs, the songs Reach Down and Say Hello to Heaven, and did those on his own. But after he'd recorded them, he thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool if I can get the members of Mother Love Bone to like record these songs with me, and we could put them out, issue them as a single. So he approached Stone Gossard and Jeff Ament about doing that, and they were in. And at this point in time, Mother Love Bone was kind of like over. They decided they weren't going to continue as Mother Love Bone still. And Gossard and Ament were in the process of forming a new band, which they were initially calling Mookie Blaylock after the basketball player that they all adored, and would later become Pearl Jam. So they entered into the studio along with a new guitarist that they'd been jamming with, a guy named Mike McCready, and Soundgarden drummer Matt Cameron and producer Rick Perisher, who would record, mix, engineer, and also play piano on the album. And they set about recording songs which would eventually, with added material, become a full-length album. The idea of the single went out rather quickly. They all contributed extra songwriting to the record, and soon enough had a whole record worth of great material. In the midst of recording this stuff, guys from Mookie Blaylock had actually flown up a promising potential new lead singer for their own band, which is a guy named Eddie Vedder, maybe you're familiar with him, who they brought in to the studio one day to hear what they were doing. And that particular day, Chris Cornell was having a difficulty trying to lay down vocal tracks for the song. He wasn't getting them on tape the way he was hearing them right in his head. He was kind of trying to do them as 2 separate vocal parts. And so the guys at Mookie Blaylock say, hey, why don't you let this guy take a stab at it? Which they did. And the resulting song, the track you're hearing right now, a song called Hunger Strike. And it ended up that Vedder was actually able to perfectly nail exactly what was in Cornell's head, couldn't quite get it out. So now with an album worth of songs, they needed a name. They chose their name based on the lyrics for the song Man of Golden Words from Mother Love Bone. And they went out and did a couple of shows in November and December of 1990, and the album finally streeted in April of 1991. Now, there were no like big commercial expectations for this record at the time. It was just like a labor of love that they did for their friend and an art project, and as such, all the guys from the band have said that this was like one of the most pleasurable experiences that they actually had working on an album. It was so easy, everybody was getting along great, the material just came flowing out of them. So the album finally gets released in April 91, and it does okay. It sells about 70,000 copies. It does decent business. But then grunge takes off, becomes a huge thing, and after the mainstream breakthroughs of both Soundgarden and Pearl Jam in late 91, and falling into the next year in early 92, the album's release label, A&M, who was also Soundgarden's label, decided that they would give another push, completely titled song playing in the background, to the album, realizing what they were sitting on, saying, wow, we got gold here, we got Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, we should like put this album out. So they released the video for Hunger Strike, the track you just heard, and the album started selling more and more copies, eventually becoming one of the best-selling albums of 1992. Now, I myself actually didn't pick up the album initially because while I was a big Mother Love Bone fan, I wasn't necessarily crazy about Soundgarden. I like Soundgarden, but Cornell's vocals were just too screechy, screamy for me. I never actually heard him sing, and it wasn't until this album that happened, and it was because of my friend Laurel Guerin, props to you, girl, who pointed out to me that I should really check out the album because Cornell actually sang on it, and that the material was actually a bit different from Soundgarden. There was like a lot more acoustic-laden stuff, a lot more moody stuff. It wasn't just all heavy stuff. Now, granted, there's some heavier stuff on the album. Tracks like the epic Reach Down, that's about as grungy as a song could get. Pushing Forward Back's got a great, cool driving guitar riff to it. And there's tons of other great songs on the album. I love the album's opening cut, Say Hello to Heaven. Love singing it, bitch hit those high notes, so let me tell you. And other tracks like Call Me a Dog, which has a real moody feel to it, and a screamingly great guitar solo from Mike McCready. All Night Thing is one of my favorites. Other songs which we'll get to down the road, but overall I think it's one of the best things that any of these musicians have ever done, and it's been a favorite of mine well since the time it was released. And that brings us back to the story of what we're talking about. With the reacquisition of the album's master tapes last year, who had been held by Rick Parrish, who unfortunately passed away a year or so before, the band decided it was time to revisit the album. And with the 25th anniversary looming, what better time to do it? And so they have gone and released this special 25th anniversary editions of the record. It exists in several formats. There is a single CD version of the album, which features a newly mixed version of the original album by noted producer Brendan O'Brien, who has been Pearl Jam's longtime producer, and he's worked with Soundgarden as well, so he seemed like the guy to do it. And there's also what I have, which is the 2-disc deluxe edition. Comes in a digipack, whereas the other one comes in a jewel case, much like the original version of the album. And the difference between that is you get the whole original album remix, plus the first disc also features 3 alternate take mixes of tracks from the album by Adam Casper. And there's a second CD that features demos and outtakes. There are 7 demos, 5 of which were previously unreleased, and 2 have never been heard before. They were never on the original album, didn't make the final cut, and those being the songs Angel of Fire and Black Cat. Black Cat you have heard because I featured it on the page before. Angel of Fire, no one's really heard that before. And a great tune. It would have been really cool to hear that one more fleshed out. And then there's 5 studio outtakes, also newly mixed by Adam Casper. Just different versions. There's like an instrumental version of Times of Trouble and some other tracks. And then there is a super deluxe edition of the album. If that 2 discs isn't enough for you, 4 discs in the super deluxe version. The first 2, of course, are the same thing that you'll find in the deluxe version of the album. The third being a DVD of band performances from over the years, live performances, videos, most of it never before seen. And the fourth is a Blu-ray audio disc of the album in 5.1 surround sound, also with, I think, the Hunger Strike video in surround sound too. Plus additional expanded packaging. It comes in like this little box with a flip top, additional liner notes, a lenticular sticker, and a poster for all of those people who want those little extras. Now, I did not opt for that version because it ended up being way more priced out of the range I wanted to pay for it. Depending on what you get in, it's between 100 and 120, 130 bucks, which to me was too much for really just getting what most of us wanted on this disc, aside from the remixes, which was that live DVD performances, and kind of disappointed they didn't do a standalone version of that. Maybe after the fact they will put that out as a standalone thing, but in the interim, not paying that much just to get it. Now, you're probably going to say, okay, when's he going to get around to telling us how the remixes is different? Well, here you go. For the most part, the differences that you'll notice are going to be a punchier lower end, which get much more resonance to the album at all. Some songs you'll notice that the instrumentation, the little instrumental parts, whether it be like an acoustic guitar here or there, or just the guitar or something else, they stand out a little bit more. They're highlighted a little bit more prominently in the mix. And sometimes it's the vocals too. For instance, with we'll go back to the instrumental part in the songs Times of Trouble and All Night Thing. you really can hear the piano parts much more distinctly than you could in the original mix. And sidebar, Times of Trouble is a song that's a great tune. That actually exists in 2 versions. There's the Temple of the Dog version, and then there's also a version by Pearl Jam, which ended up being a B-side called Footsteps. And there's 2 versions of that are out there too. I like the song in both forms. It was part of the original Mama Son trilogy of songs that Eddie Vedder submitted as his demo tape to Pearl Jam. They sent him some music, said, write some lyrics, put some vocals on this, and he sent them back this track. So you can tell they came from the same era. But back to the album, sometimes, as I said too, it's also the vocals that are a little different. There are a lot of tracks where they seem a bit more centered in the mix, such as on Say Hello to Heaven. And of course with Hunger Strike, Eddie Vedder's vocals are a bit more prominently featured too. Before, he was just some unknown guy that they gave a little guest spot to. That was before he became Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam, so it makes sense to feature him a little bit more highly in the mix now. Overall, it's cool hearing these songs that I've grown to love so much presented in a different light. And another good thing about them is that they are not too loud or brick-walled. One of the big complaints from when Pearl Jam reissued the 20th anniversary of 10, or 25th anniversary of 10, whatever it was back in the day, that the Brendan O'Brien done version of that album that was remixed was a bit too loud. Not the problem with this, it's still a lot of dynamic range. And as far as the demos and the alternate takes go, ultimately that's going to depend on you and what you think about them, how much you feel like you're listening to them. I think they're kind of cool. For instance, the 3 alternate takes that are on the first disc, the alternate version of Say Hello to Heaven is really nice. It kind of features a stripped back, almost unplugged style performance of the song, really highlighting the vocals more, and so it's more quiet than loud on the album. Wooden Jesus, it has more of an exotic feel to it in the instrumentation, although All Night Thing, not a whole lot of difference there, but still remains one of my favorite songs. Another interesting little side note, while not featured on the soundtrack, that tune was featured in the movie Wayne's World. Bonus trivia for you kids. But overall, just cool things here and there that you can pick out in the mix. And it's just cool to be able to hear different versions. Hey, if you like the original version of the album, you still got that. That's out there for you to enjoy. You might enjoy some of this more. Sometimes the track, I found the original track actually sounded a little bit better than the remix version, but it's going to be up to you. It's kind of cool hearing both of them. There is also vinyl versions of this album planned. There's a 2-disc set coming out, and before I even get onto that, I should point out that the album existed on vinyl before. There was extremely rare original pressing on the album on single disc, although long out of print, hard to find. And then, not too many years back, Dutch company Music on Vinyl, who's known for doing a lot of great reissues, put out a 2-disc version of the album. They spread this album out over 3 sides, with the 4th side being an etched picture of the album, just to give the songs the best audio quality possible. Like, of course, like the more space you can put in between the grooves, the better the audio fidelity is. It's a vinyl trade, but and that's kind of pretty much what's going to be coming out. I don't know how much different it's going to be, other than the fact that there's going to be a lenticular cover that's going to be removable, and of course the new Brendan O'Brien mix, whereas this is the original mix of the album. So again, you can still get both. You can get the original version, you can get this newly remixed version. But that's been delayed till November. Production, imaging, managing woes and all that stuff. And there's also an interesting Best Buy exclusive version of the album, which is like a CD plus LP version, where you buy the single disc version of the album, and it comes with a voucher card where you get a code, you go online, you submit your voucher after you buy it, and they send you a copy of the album, but it's like the single disc version of the album, and it's kind of no thrills packaging. It comes in a plain white sleeve. There's no inserts or lyrics or any of that stuff. From what I've been told, the sound quality is still good, but probably not going to be as good as the 2 LP version, because they just have to cram everything onto one record instead. But if you're vinyl fans, those are coming out. I may get one of those. I don't know. I'm probably just going to stick with the original version I have. And while we're speaking of vinyl and Pearl Jam related things, I should also point out that if you didn't know, Pearl Jam has also released 2 of their long out of print records. 1996, celebrating its 20th anniversary right around now. No Code, out on vinyl, as well as 1998's Yield, This is actually original pressing of Yield. I didn't buy the redone one, but I never had no code, so I was psyched to have that. Great, finally. Sound excellent. It contains all the original aspects of the original releases and stuff, so that's very cool. But back to Temple of the Dog. Definitely a nice little set that the bands have put out, and go and check out the 20th anniversary of Temple of the Dog. Get it out, whatever version you so choose. Sorry for the long, epic rambling, but it's kind of a long, epic release. And again, you know, a favorite of mine for over the years. It's funny, it's coming out now because I've always associated the feel of this album with fall, and being that it's fall now, perfect time to release it and be re-enjoying this album once again in a new version. That's the show for this week. We will catch you next week, where I can promise you for the next few weeks, hopefully I will not have any delays, because there's a bunch of great stuff coming up that I'm going to be talking about. And I already know what next week's subject is going to be. So we will catch you next time on Sit and Spin. See you then. Take it easy.